May I say to start with, I love your poster, not the one, not the quad, but the one behind you. That's ace. Is that designed by computer or is that drawn or
No, no, it's Gary Dalton who does he's done every poster of mine.
Both of them.
Yeah, both of these, but he's done every poster of mine from the beginning. So Tony, Hyena, Muscle, and now Odyssey.
He's
Uh,
brilliant. You should check
yeah,
out his work.
he's a genius, Gary, and we've sort of just he's become one of my collaborators, like my brother. That I constantly, as soon as I've got a film pretty early on, I'll tell him about it and get him excited, and he comes up with these amazing images. But yeah, this almost Edward Hopper, isn't it? That
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I have to say I love Drew Struzan. I know he died recently, but some of his artwork, some of
yeah,
my 80s favorites are just like you can't beat it.
incredible. And also it's such a shame because of streamers now and everything else. The art of the poster is
Mm,
dying
yeah,
because if you look on Apple or Netflix, it's just like the font and then someone's face.
yeah,
The poster art is really a dying art, and it needs. That's why people like Gary are really important. And funny enough, he's Frankenstein is everywhere right now, so he's doing all
yeah.
right. It's Frankenstein is all over London right now, all over the world actually.
Yeah. From
Um,
a distance, I have to say, Polly, it looks like you're doing a Heath Ledger kind of thing with the black around your eyes, and it looks like you've got a white face, so it looks like you're Heath Ledger from back.
yeah, I know
That's a
there is
cool
a bit
way.
of that. There is a bit of that.
Anyway, I don't know if you've been told, but I think on some of the posters we've got quote for people's movies on there because my writer Bradley saw it, I think at Fright Fest, and he adored it.
Brilliant.
It's right up his alley, right up his alley. Mine as well. I was lucky enough to see it at Soho House, which is such a good cinema, and the sound is really good in there. So it's such a great place to see it. I was looking through the production notes. And I was going to
Yeah,
start with Rich.
that was a
Read it for the.
exhibition
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
exhibition screening.
It was
Yeah.
so good. Really enjoyed it. I wanted to start. Your producer John, he's contributed to the production notes, and I always try and have a look at him. And he summed you up, Gerard, as extreme visceral punch, but absolutely hilarious. And I love that. That's such a great. That's such a great. You could just put that on the poster. I think that would get droves of
I
Have you
people.
seen
think,
that?
yeah, no, I
Oh,
have. Yeah,
great.
yeah, it's brilliant. It's
Is
brilliant.
that
Yeah.
when you're kind of at these Q&As and everything else, is that what people kind of ask you questions about the way that you make movies and whether those words and those sentences and those phrases about your work tend to come up a lot?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. I think Kim Newman recently said that if you put Abel Ferreira and Mike Lee in a telepod and mix them together, that's what you'd get. You'd get Gerard, which for me is the highest compliment. So it is that those two worlds of sort of extreme gnarly filmmaking, and also the social realist side of Alan Clark and Mike Lee and Ken Loach. So it's those two worlds in a way that I found myself always sort of being in the middle of. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do love your some of your movies because they are very funny. And I know that's not necessarily the point, but I always find with movies about life, particularly London life as it is right now, you can't help but kind of laugh sometimes, and sometimes you're laughing in the most uncomfortable way. And I have to say, when I watch this, that is a feeling because I'm in London, I've lived here all my life, and my parents have moved away, and I'm just here with my wife now. I'm only here because my wife is here, and it's so when you're watching your films, because I was born in the 80s, you can kind of see, like, I'm from North London, I can see little bits of it kind of de-escalating and becoming things that aren't. But I don't know, there's kind of a humor that comes with that. Have people had that experience with you of being Londoners and saying, this is what you're saying is kind of true and what's happening right now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, again, like I think like a lot of my interests like architecture, but also trying to protect because I come from a family of publicans and we had pubs and nightclubs in the East End. Um, pub culture, all of that stuff plays a very big important part in my life. Also architecture and restaurants and pubs and seeing the decline of cinemas, restaurants, pubs, all those places in my lifetime. Suddenly places are going that should be protected. And places like Paris, people write on the streets if somewhere's shut up. Do you know what I mean? But in
Mm,
London, because the amount of money and development that goes on, it seems like no one cares so much. So just trying to capture those parts of London before. I mean, Soho now is we're in Soho right now, but it's changed so much
Mm,
from what it was. You've still got little pockets of places, but you really have to look for the old Soho. The old Soho doesn't really exist anymore. It's a different place. And the same thing's happened in New York as well now. But yeah, so I think that there's those themes that keep reoccurring. Like every filmmaker, you end up you set out there's certain themes that creep in all the time.
But it's true what you say. That is true about Gerard's films, and I think it's that sort of humor. It's people in very desperate and bleak
mm.
situation can be very funny. So in a way, it's that humor that you laugh and then you check that anyone else is laughing because maybe you shouldn't. And it there's like an authenticity to it, which you talk about. There's the rehearsal of and it's very authentically sort of shot, handheld. You're following sort of documentary style at sometimes a lot of it, and there's that authenticity. But you're not going to have someone like Tom Davies in a film where you're not going to be laughing a lot. And actually, it's one of the things that I think about, and Cavan as well. But when we intro the film, I don't usually speak, but the thing I want to usually say is, feel free to laugh out loud. You're allowed to, but of course that will stop anyone laughing, I expect. But it's
Yeah,
the thing
yeah,
that stuck with me. If I stay for a bit, I don't usually watch the whole film now with the whole audience all the time. But if I stay for a bit, I just want to check that they're laughing a bit because then
yeah,
they're
yeah,
getting it the right
yeah.
way.
I have to say the beginning of the film rang very true for me because I got a tooth infection like 3 days before I got married in April. It's the worst
No,
thing. And
oh no.
watching the opening scene and then being because of like I have anxiety and stuff, being so anxious about getting dry socket because I've heard so many of these things.
Well,
I sat
yeah,
there laughing and just being like, "Oh my God, this could have happened to me."
yeah. So I had dry socket. So I was
Oh, it
about
sounds
10 years.
horrible. It sounds
Yeah,
horrible.
10 years ago, I was just about to fly to South Africa to recce a film, and just beforehand, I had a wisdom tooth that got infected, and the dentist pulled it out, and then 2 days later, I was on a plane to South Africa. So the altitude dried it out, caused dry socket. And I got to South Africa, beautiful country in Cape Town, just had to look for an emergency dentist and holding my mouth, my jaw the whole time I was there. I couldn't enjoy anything, pretty much in my hotel room and just going to the emergency dentist on lots of painkillers. And it's hard, it's just a throbbing, horrible pain. And I put it in another script that didn't end up getting made about a corrupt policeman, not hyena, another kind of one. And I was like, I need to get the dry socket in somewhere. And with Natasha, it's like, okay, the fact that someone's constantly got toothache, it's one of
Mm.
the worst backache and toothache, one of the two worst pains. Just on top of everything else, to have that dry socket going on that's making her more stressed. So it's quite an interesting tool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's quite a thing watching the film. There's this like thing going all the time and just like escalates and escalates and escalates. And it kind of mirrors what she's going through, which I thought was really clever.
Mhm.
and it's good
Polly,
for
for you, I
Polly to
mean,
have
you, oh, go on.
for Polly to actually have the wisdom tooth out. It was really brave of her, actually. I mean, there was
Just
nothing.
suffer from my art.
I'm
Did you
kidding.
did you really do it for the film?
No, I'm
Oh
kidding.
no, I was
Can
gonna.
you
I mean,
imagine? Can you
that's
imagine?
method acting right there. I don't know what Daniel Day-Lewis would say about that. He's been talking about method acting recently, hasn't he? But my wisdom tooth out. I just did it. It's fine.
They were out long ago. They were out long ago. I
Yeah.
couldn't.
I don't think I've ever had mine out, actually. I just had this is the only tooth I've ever had out, and it was
I
horrible.
had
Don't do
had
it.
so many
Yeah,
teeth out when
it's
I was little. I
horrible.
think about 8 teeth out when I was little before wisdom teeth
Yeah.
even.
Yeah, they wanted to try and save it, but I spoke to a few people. My granddad on my wedding was just like, just have it out because you don't want it in 10 years getting worse and worse. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
granddad, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Polly, for you, I mean, playing this character, when you see her, I mean, this is another thing that's personal to me. I've had so many horrible run-ins with estate agents, one particular that was just horrific, and I can't
Oh,
stand
God.
those people, couldn't stand to be in a room with those people, let alone like emailing them. It was just horrific. But
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
that character, because it seems so like mundane and such a, it's like, oh yes, she's an estate agent, but
yeah.
actually she's a really interesting character despite that. And obviously you working with Gerard, when did you kind of settle on what you wanted the character to be, and then the process of you two together kind of finding her?
Well, two parts of answer to that. When I was first in London, well, when I first had keys to my flat in Islington, um, I had to do about 5 jobs to pay the initially pay the mortgage, you know. And the first, so keys in hand, I walked down my local high street and bumped into a friend coming out of a pub with her husband, and she said, "Oh, I work over there. Do you want to work over there?" And I said, "Yes." And it was a boutique. I'm afraid I was one of those. It was a
Ah,
boutique lettings agency. But I was one of those, not in the ruthless sense. It wasn't like a Foxtons or a Savills. It was nowhere near that. It was a boutique letting agency with a guy with anger management problems who didn't want to be there, sitting. And I walked in, got the job with him. We were just watching feature films on his laptop in the back of the office. Did I tell you that? He couldn't be less interested in the job. And then he left quite quickly. He was bullshit with all the potential tenants coming in. But basically, what happened was I was sort of shoved in at the deep end. 6 months in, I was almost running the shop, really. I was put straight on the rents. The rents weren't always adding up because there was stuff going on where the often AWOL boss would come in and he wasn't topping up the balances, basically. I think he was hard up. It was a failing business. There were all sorts going on. I'm not going to name the place. It's long gone now. But, you know, I just got a little dive into a place that I learned to draw up contracts. I learned the rents. I learned, you know, the complaints of the tenants and having to field them when landlords weren't, you know, dealing with the management issues. There was stuff that went on there that if you wrote it down, you'd think was a bit far-fetched, like keys coming off the wall to take, the boss would take his guests in from out of town, take a key off the wall and allow them into a property that wasn't yet up on sale, not sale, but it's lettings. It was only lettings, but it was just ridiculous. I met a really wonderful girl there who was just turning 40 at the time. I've never laughed so much with anyone. And it was only a few weeks in that I learned that she was bringing in her Diet Coke bottles that she'd bring into work every day. It was basically full of vodka, and she was sitting at a screen, not actually doing any work. Lots of the humour came out of an incredibly traumatic divorce that she was going to, and she was sort of one of these desperate but very funny people, but she was steadily drinking herself to death. So it was this really intense period of my life. Well, I was sort of just waiting for my agent to ring and going, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I've got to nip off and do an advert or whatever, an audition." But I was left to my own devices and really running the shop, and I got a few different people I knew involved and helping, because actors are quite good at selling, you know, rental property. They're good with people, you know, and could sell places well. And I got an eye to that. So anyway, approaching the part, I mean, she was different to my part, but loosely inspired by stories that I told Gerard from there. It was long before I met you, but, you know, I talked about them over the years. And then, you know, getting to the rehearsal process, you know, whatever anyone thinks of the character, she would have been entirely different if I didn't have those 3 weeks or so rehearsals that we had, because I'm going on too long now, but I'll just tell you briefly. So we had a really lovely, cozy sort of situation on the first day of rehearsals, and it was, you know, really nice to get to know all the people in the office. We had Charlie Palmer Rothwell, Kelly Shirley, Jasmine Blackborough, the office contingent. And we just discussed the hierarchy and how we knew each other, the background. And then Gerard immediately said, "Right, this was like to the first afternoon, Polly, you go out the door. Guys, you're in the office. Go, you know, improvisation, get it." And I went into a cold sweat, and I was outside the door thinking I could just run away, honestly. And instead I walked in and I just completely failed. I was trying to match, these guys were really comedically brilliant. They were improvising really well, nonchalant, you know, quiet, hopping around the script. And I was trying to sort of match them and be funny, and I was laughing at some of their jokes. And, you know, it took me a while, but I had the epiphany that, you know, I didn't laugh with any of them. I didn't need them. I didn't match them. I had to smash through them. She took what she wanted and she disposed of people. And when you had that feeling that you didn't need to apologize or smile or laugh or speak, then Natasha grew from that, I think.
Yeah. Gerard, I wanted to ask you, you just mentioned about streaming on something different, and I'm still surprised watching. I won't name them, but watching some of the movies that cost hundreds of millions of dollars and feel quite like exceedingly artificial and as if they're made by a computer and all that kind of stuff. I just wonder for you with this kind of movie on this kind of budget that you can bring such a realism. Are you surprised that the industry is in the state that it's in, and the fact that you can do something like this on a budget that looks so real and so immersive and so raw and real versus
Yeah,
what we're
hopefully that's
getting
why I
now
think,
and not getting them in the cinema as
yeah,
well?
exactly. But I think that's why AI to me doesn't really. I'm not too concerned about
Mm,
AI. I think the big films could be in trouble because anyway they're made by computers anyway, right? They're
mm,
quite soulless, millions of pounds of budget. But I think as soon as yeah, I mean, I want it's trying to it's the only way I sort of know how to really work is that immersive way, and the time I take, in the sort of workshop period, shooting on the streets, going into places with almost getting permission from say one person, but going into a lot of places where they're not knowing you're going to turn up. It creates a more of a documentarian feel
mm.
to my work, I think, which is obviously lacking in a lot of the big budget films, and but also its content has become like McDonald's or Burger King, isn't it? I mean, even the way that streamers are designed now, and I think there is a definite movement to go back to physical media, cinema, and places like the Nickel are opening up, which we did a
Yeah.
preview of Odyssey.
It's a great place.
And you just see people are crying out for actually, and you go in the Nickel, and obviously I ended up buying a Blu-ray just because you go in, you're like, oh, look at that, look at this. And also the reason there's so many films that are not available on streamers, they're just disappearing. Certain
Mm.
films are never going to. So you're just being led by the algorithm or led by what sort of films are going to be you're going to be put in front of you, and it's not the same experience. And I just prefer the experience of either going to a cinema or even choosing a film
Mm.
to put on and not just going through a catalogue like dun 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 and just seeing these little thumbnail posters. It's depressing. And that's the way it's going. As I say, the poster art is dying, and so, but there is a movement to go back to physical media.
Yeah.
And actually,
I used to
trying
love going through a video
to
shop back in the day.
negotiate doing I'm in talks to have a box set of all the films,
Mm.
Blu-ray, which is not because in the States Muscle is not even available, but just that excites me more than putting it up on streamers.
Yeah. You know what? I've been talking to my wife about this. I have one of my dreams, if I ever had the money, is to open a video shop. Because there's so little and there's such a way. Like I say, all these movies that are
I know
lost or just stay on VHS or don't get upgraded, all this kind of stuff. And also for like the older generation, they don't know all the stuff. Like my nan would love to go to a video shop, I'm sure, and pick out an Audrey Hepburn film or something. I'm just like, surely there's a way to do this. Surely there's a way for people to do this. And
You
hopefully
know
that
that
is going the way that you say.
that's sorry. Go
No,
on.
it is because what you also people don't realize is, or they're finding out now, you buy something on Amazon or whatever, you don't own it. You're
Mm,
only owning it until their license. When the license expires 2 years later, that film's gone, and
yeah.
it's like you can only own something with, you buy the Blu-ray, and it's fantastic, and it's just a nicer, you can't go back to video shops really because obviously that
Yeah.
ship sailed, but it's we are missing such a
I was just going to say, but only it's a bit random, but of that of our price range. But it was this house in Derbyshire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was 2 out of town, and it was beyond the price range probably, but it was a beautiful house. This modern house is like amazing architecture, interior design dream. But attached to it was this beautiful little cinema. It reminded me a bit of the Nickel, old school seat, and it was to sell the whole place, to operate the business. Well, I was thinking, wouldn't that be a dream? Curate your own, like the Nickel, create your own, sell your DVDs. But you know, it was a dream, and it was a bit out of the way.
Well, guys, listen, I wish you all the best with the movie. Really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what you do next. All your movies really enthralled.
Thanks,
so
Scott.
I hope you get to keep going, doing what you're doing.
Thanks very much. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
No worries. Have a good one.